Yogiri is an ugly and worthless weakling who grew up as a lab rat in a secret facility, because of which he is socially inept and plays video games all day to avoid human interactions. One day, when his class is off on a field trip, Bus-kun gets isekai'd to a fantasy land where Yogiri's useless ass gets left behind to become a hungry dragon's one-star meal. However, nobody knows that this so-called loser is secretly an overpowered god who can unalive anything with thoughts alone. The only con is that this ass pull turns him into the modern-day Sleeping Beauty. This is the reason why even when his classmates turn into the dinosaur's appetizer, Yogiri continues his beauty sleep without a care in the world until a hot babe, Donora, wakes him up. As his memory struggles to recognize his own classmate, the tone-deaf chick tells him how the others got attacked by the dinosaur and that they will be the next in line if they don't come up with an escape plan soon. Yogiri immediately uses his big brain and picks up an abandoned mic, making Donora wonder if he'll sing some K-pop theme song to tame the beast, only for him to throw it straight at him to piss him off. Expectedly, the ugly roided-up duckling flies toward the last two survivors, scaring the shit out of Donora, who clings to Yogiri for emotional support, only for her juicy melons to awaken the man of culture inside him, reminded that he's too much of a virgin to die just yet. He unalives the dragon before it barbecues them both and breaks the good news to the chick, who is more shocked than relieved. After that, he goes back to his precious video game and tells her not to act like a drama queen, making her wonder if it's somehow normal to stay grounded in such a situation. Eventually, she calms down, after which he asks for the entire story from the beginning. She explained that their school bus got isekai'd, and an uppity, third-rate cosplayer got on and unalived their teacher just for clout before introducing herself as Shion, a sage. She then cracked a dad joke, which no one laughed at, so she lashed out and unalived the bus driver like some psychotic bitch. Just when things started to smell like some B-movie hostage plot, she explained they were all brought here as sage candidates and would be blessed with a bunch of cool powers to become her lackeys. She then installed some gaming software into all of them, with exceptions including Donora, Yogiri, and 2 NPCs. Upon realizing that this software assigned them ranking and superpowers, Donora couldn't help herself and asked Sion what would become of her now, only for the nutcase to threaten to turn her into animal feed if she couldn't become a sage within the next 1 month, despite not having powers. Just as the terrified chick watched her in disbelief, this crackhead version of Amelia told everyone their first mission would begin after an hour and left. Following this, the self-appointed class leader, Suguru, who thought he was the new big shot, came forward and yapped about how they needed to work in teams to get out of this situation, as he collected info on what abilities the others had. Once they decided on their next course of action, everyone left the losers behind on the bus. However, they refused to sit tight and tried to get off while Donora tried to wake Yogiri up, only for the other talentless bitch to tell her to leave him be. Soon enough, karma bit her and Suguru blocked their exit from the bus after flexing his muscles and newly promoted status. He explained that since bringing useless wimps like them along would be a burden, they'd rather they get eaten alive right here. Before leaving, he explained they'd become dragon food so that the rest of them could safely reach the capital, and broke it to Donora that even her best friend of many years agreed to this strategy. As the poor girl reeled from this shock, the dragon showed up and skewered the other loud-mouthed chick, which finally brings them to the present. Yogiri listens to this entire sob story with utmost attention, but once she's done, all he worries about is how he'll charge his video game in this Stone Age world.
Now, bro?
While Donora can't believe just how laid back he is, Yogiri deduces that if there was supposed to be just one attack, it should be safe for them to get out of the bus now. Before they do so, the chick asks about how he managed to instantly paralyze the dragon, but he says that her pea-sized brain won't understand it even if he told her, and jumps off of the bus. She follows his lead, only to discover that 3 big losers from their class are flying toward them. Yogiri asks if he should just get rid of them, only for Donora to lecture him on human ethics and how his first thought shouldn't be unaliving people when he sees his classmates. He reminds her they are the ones who almost turned them into a 3-course meal, and suspects they've returned to bully them once again. However, the dim stays quiet. Meanwhile, the 3 losers spot Donora right next to the dead dragon and land on the ground, yapping about how this has ruined their master scheme to turn the chick's corpse into a zombie and clap her peaches all day long. One of them calls it the creepiest fetish ever, but the other two don't give a shit about it. Meanwhile, the chick finally understands why Yogiri suggested their unaliving and whispers to him that it doesn't sound like a bad idea anymore. Suddenly, one of the losers flexes his huge and hot fireball since his actual nuts are nothing but an embarrassment and tells Donora to come with them. The XL-sized creep gets on the bandwagon too and boasts how he shamelessly dreams about clapping her cheeks before bed every night, giving her the creeps. As she hides behind Yogiri for safety, it doesn't sit right with the self-proclaimed leader of their loser gang, and he begins to bitch about it again, only for Yogiri to tell him to die. While the rest of them laugh at him for being delusional, the bigger loser hits the ground, followed by the next one, until the last one of them, Hanakawa, is left standing. Yogiri warns him not to pull anything funny if he doesn't want the same fate, but this guy is in denial and flexes his healing magic to bring back his dead friends, only to discover it's as useless as his own existence. On the other hand, Donora finally realizes what happened to the dragon just moments ago. While Yogiri educates Hanakawa's empty brain on how he can instantly unalive anybody if he just wishes to. In addition to that, he can sense any ill intention aimed at him, thanks to which he can instantly get rid of his enemies even before they attack him, as Hanakawa drops to his knees, whining about how he has no chance to penetrate a plot armor so thick. Yogiri asks why he and his loser pals were acting so cocky when they received their ass pulls just hours ago. Hearing this, the Buddha-bellied bastard reveals how their three-idiot gang had gotten isekai to this place once before, only that they were sent back to their own planet after they defeated the evil demon lord. However, since Yogiri has zero interest in any of this fairy tale crap, he decides to finish him off too, only for this loser to pull out a supposedly ultra-rare servant collar and offer himself up. He initially sets Donora as his master, hoping for some sadistic roleplay in the future, but since she's had enough of his kinky bullshit, she transfers the ownership to Yogiri. While Hanakawa mourns his trash tier luck, Yogiri explains he's not a rainbow flag and has no interest in him whatsoever, before asking him to leave his money behind like a true capitalist and get lost in the nearby forest. Following this, Donora asks why Yogiri is doing so much to protect her, while secretly hoping for some romantic plot development, only for him to explain it's because her plot cannons were super soft when she grabbed him on the bus. While she realizes that all men are complete and utter shit, Shion makes out with her body pillow until her bodyguard walks in on her and reports that after the first mission's completion, 4 people have died. She assumes it to be the 4 without any ability, only to be quite surprised when the status window shows 2 S-ranked mages were lost. Although the bodyguard suspects it could be the result of instant death magic, Shion brushes him off and goes back to her makeout session, ordering him to deal with this situation as he pleases. Meanwhile, Yogiri and Donora make it to the closest city, only to realize the city guards speak nothing but gibberish. However, just as soon as they lose all hope of getting their new ID cards, their knight in shining armor arrives with a PhD in Japanese and tells them how the rest of the sage candidates have already left for the capital. Just when Donora thinks they've been saved, this guy channels his inner super creep and offers to let her spend the night with him, only for her to grab her belongings and instantly leave. Later, when the two head to the city, a smoking hot cat lady called Myryu approaches them and offers to become their personal tour guide, but Yogiri finds her sus. He inquires how becoming an unpaid servant will benefit her, and she explains it's because her goal in life is to sleep with as many human guys as possible so that one of them falls for her someday. Donora feels a bit bad about how bad her choices are, but since she wants a city tour, she says yes to her offer. However, this free tour quickly turns into the painfully obvious tourist scam when a bunch of ugly shitheads surround them and claim they are here to steal their money. Yogiri wonders if they got lost on their way to some frat house costume party, but they laugh and call him a powerless sage candidate with nothing up his sleeve. Yogiri takes it personally and says he'll just have to unalive them all to prove otherwise, while Donora warns Myryu about how ridiculously strong he is despite his very punchable face. She shrugs her off only for Yogiri to awaken his Sharingan and begin yet another unaliving spree. First, he gets rid of half of them, and then experiments with unaliving one by 50% and by getting rid of only the eyeballs of the next one. As these losers all begin whimpering from the pain, Myryu realizes she's messed with the wrong guy and pulls her damsel in distress card. whining about how she deserves to be spared since she has 3 hungry little siblings waiting for her at home. The Giga-Chad says he doesn't care and tells her and her boss to die, only for it to not work this time. After laughing in Yogiri's face, these 2 idiots flee while regretting their life choices, only for the spell to take its sweet time and unalive them moments later. Once that is done, Yogiri suggests that they get out of there too, only for some Cinderella ripoff to stop their escape. It turns out that she's the kingdom's watchdog and accuses the duo of causing this massacre, but Yogiri claims to be an innocent bystander, which this Cinderella doesn't buy. She reveals she saw the entire thing from the start and was using them to get to the leader of the street thugs. Donora gets angry over being treated like fish bait, but the guard girl says it doesn't matter to her since she is protected against any type of sage magic, only for her partner to reveal neither of the two seems to have any magical gifts. The Cinderella wannabe finds it hard to believe, but since someone as useless as them couldn't have instantly unalived so many bandits, she lets them go. Her lackey comes up to them to apologize, but Yogiri's capitalist ass tells him to repay them for the insult with his fat wallet, which brings them to a 5-star hotel. While Donora's broke existence celebrates this victory, Yogiri asks the cliched question of whether they should share a single bed or get 2 separate rooms, although she shyly chooses the latter. Her Delulu ass later wonders if Yogiri is head over heels in love with her.
No.
Only to be reminded it's just her juicy melons that he's interested in. As they settle into their rooms, her rom-com fantasy gets interrupted when a ghost suddenly appears in her room and introduces herself as Mokomoko, her great-great ancestor and guardian angel. It catches Donora by surprise, and she questions where the hell she was when she was about to become a dragon's happy meal. Mokomoko stutters and explains it's because she was scared shitless of Yogiri, so she couldn't show up earlier, and explains she's the one who kept the sage's gift from being installed into her. Donora questions why she's destroying her life when she's supposed to be her guardian angel, only for the ghost to explain how that so-called gift would have turned her into Shion's puppet. She also explains that she wants to take her back to the original timeline, but Donora states she can't do it as long as she's dependent on Yogiri, only for Mokomoko to offer to teach her their ancestors' skills and turn her into the female Jackie-chan overnight. The next morning, Yogiri introduces Celestina, the hotel manager, to Donora and explains that she has booked train tickets for them to the capital, and also managed to create a charger for his precious video game. However, this invention backfires for the poor girl, who later has to become his human power generator while Mr. Alpha plays Fortnite. Luckily, this doesn't last too long as the train gets attacked and the two narrowly escape. It turns out that what caused their brains to nearly get smoked was a nearby battle between a Transformers-inspired invader, called the Aggressor, and a sage straight out of a Disneyland play. While these two are going at it in the city, the bandit whose eyes were unalived by Yogiri wakes up in the royal palace and begins to cry for his mommy. Right then, the real mommy, Lane, shows up and pulls one of his eyes out just as her subordinate explains how healing magic hasn't been working on him. She then recreates the plucked eye with magic and learns that even after doing that, he can't see. Amused, she resorts to her strongest power move, a love bite, and turns him into a vampire. However, even as he joins her zombie family, his eyes still fail to see, making her realize her magic is as low rent as her stylist. But before she can begin to sort that one out, a hero attacks the palace and tries to make a jigsaw puzzle out of her, only for her to use instant regeneration and come out unscathed. The queen of plot cannons reminds him she's a sage and he shouldn't be attacking her, being a hero, but he trash talks her and all sages, claiming that they deserve death, before using his ultra OP magic sword to screw them all. Back at the train wreck, the Disneyland sage barbecues everyone else on the train besides Yogiri and Donora. When the Grim Reaper wannabe asks why he's messing with them when they've done nothing to provoke him, this god-complexed idiot tells him to bow down before him instead of running his tongue, which Yogiri takes personally. He quickly sends this loud mouth into a dirt nap, after which the robotic guy shits his non-existent pants and offers to grant him any wish in exchange for his life. However, when they ask him to either return them to their world or tell them how to get there, he says it's beyond his ability. In the end, Mokomoko has him grant her a wish. Meanwhile, Lane survives the hero's attack and yeets the guy right off the roof. Later, she meets with Shion and expresses concern over the Disneyland sage being unalived by Yogiri and Donora, only for Xian to call them absolutely useless and tell her to focus more on the problems at hand. However, the certified hot mommy refuses to stay put and calls upon her ex-convict sidekick, ordering him to take her Walking Dead army to a nearby city called Hanabusa and deal with Yogiri. In the meantime, Yogiri and Danara take a break. Suddenly, Mokomoko pops up, startling them both, and reveals that she asked the Transformer for a shape-shifting weapon that Danara can even wear as her panties, embarrassing the poor girl.
Pretty smart, dude.
Later, the group reaches the city of Hanabusa and Yogiri flexes his god-tier ability, explaining how he never gets tired of using it and that it only gets more potent the more tired he gets. As Danara complains about how impenetrable his plot armor is, Mokomoko notices the barrier that surrounds the city and Yogiri introduces them to the 5-star hotel they'll be staying in. Although Danara is excited about it, the moment they walk in, some ugly slime ball from their class goes and ruins it for her. This guy is Takabana, another giant ego-ass clown with a master's in chick manipulation. Explains that he's too good to waste time on training to become a hero with the rest of his loser classmates, which is why he isn't heading to the capital. Just as he does so, Erika, one of his side chicks, gets jealous of him talking with Danara and reminds him they are here too. Following this, the dollar store Riz King introduces his hot girl harem, but all the chicks seem to lack the most basic human manners, which both Danara and Yogiri find quite distasteful. The latter wonders why he suddenly became so confident, even though he was one of the few left behind with them on the bus. But Danara explains he's always been a delusional and arrogant boy. Right then, he offers Danara an exclusive membership to his harem, which she instantly declines. He assumes it's because of Yogiri, so he tells them he'll be kind enough to let him become his servant too, even though his flag color isn't rainbow at all. Yogiri fights back the urge to unalive him and asks where he gets all his confidence with that ugly face, only to learn he's a Dominator, the strongest hero class that allows him to control low-level species. Reminded of the first house party he ever attended in the Izaki land, Takabana recalls feeling like a social outcast. One of his classmates, who is a counselor, gave him a free therapy session that day and explained how he should gather multiple level 1 servants, have them fight and win battles, and in turn, gain their XP and more servants. Takabana found this fishy, so he asked why he was telling him all this. The other guy answered that 1, it was because he was a too good for this world side character, and 2, because they'd better present at least one hero from their class, so Xian wouldn't turn them all into livestock. To him, that was the best survival strategy, which proved to be true later as he's now the #1 Rizzler in town with hot chicks crawling at his feet. He once again asks Danara about having a clapping session with him later, but she brutally shuts him down so he leaves, telling her to think it over. Elsewhere, a rather large, low-budget shadow villain wreaks havoc in a forest, while Lane defies gravity and wonders how to defeat it. Later, while Danara juggles between wanting to sneak into Yogiri's room to wake him up and not being seen as a thirsty girl, she gets distracted by smoke rising from the city as Masuki, the drag queen who leads Lane's zombie corps, wreaks havoc in the city. Seeing that the city is probably doomed, Danara retreats to her bed and decides this is way better than trying to play some flop hero. Right then, Mokomoko senses that somebody is spying on them from outside the room with bad intentions. This stalker happens to be the plot queen Erika with a third-rate invisibility cloak, and Danara doesn't waste 1 minute in calling Yogiri for help. He immediately leaves his room, and while walking down the hallway, senses Erika's ill intent toward Danara. He immediately unalives her and enters the dumb chick's room, reporting the weird dead lady to the hotel at once. While he does so, Takabana's GPS tracker on Erika goes off. He wonders what happened to her, but before he can play Sherlock Holmes, his spirit animal shows up out of nowhere and attacks him. Plot armor protects his shitty existence, and he immediately turns the cockroach into a Sunday roast, before forming a contract with it. After this, he turns back to his servant Euphemia, and after seeing the last CCTV footage from the dead chick's perspective, they conclude that she went to the hotel to either bring Danara to Takabana or get rid of her out of jealousy. Even in this situation, the king of shitheads is more worried that Danara might escape before he can get her, instead of Erika's dead body, and sends 2 other minions to secure her. Meanwhile, Lane struggles to defeat the low-budget darkness monster, while Yogiri and his chick make their escape, only to be interrupted by the leader of Takabana's chick corps, Riza. She flexes her $1 wand and freezes both of them inside an ice crystal, only for the overpowered maniac to break free after unaliving the icicles, which Donora finds baffling. Seeing this, the drama queen uses her victim card and begins to cast another spell, only for Yogiri to unalive her wand too, after which she falls to her knees and confesses that it was Tachibana who sent her here to get Donora and that she's practically useless without her wand, being a wand master. Yogiri suspects she must have another hidden somewhere, so she pulls it out of her melon vault, and his cultured ass can't help but stare shamelessly.
You sneaky. You naughty, you teasing me.
Just as he takes that away from her, another entity appears behind Donora, and for once, she does something useful and defeats it, finally channeling her inner baddie. However, it turns out that this is just one of the many puppets that surround them now. Thanks to Tachibana's other side chick, the lowly Chelsea, Riza uses this chance to pull out a third wand she was hiding, but at the cost of her worthless life. Following this, a pissed-off Yogiri unalives all the puppets too, and just as Chelsea begins to panic over her dead dolls, he finds her. Meanwhile, Tachibana learns of Riza's death, and that Chelsea has leaked all their info to save her life, so he sends his bravest soldiers, which are a bunch of cockroaches, to fight Yogiri. At the hotel, the walking Grim Reaper tells Donora that if he unalives these insects, they'll just plop down on her head, making her swear revenge upon Tachibana. As the two carefully make their way down the stairs, the ugly Rizzler's god complex gets triggered even when Euphemia advises otherwise, and he orders the cockroaches to annihilate Yogiri. Unluckily for him, the King of Ass Poles uses their ill intent to track down Tachibana and unalives him. Later, while he and Donora make their escape, the remaining chicks of the loser's disbanded chick gang try to heal him, but to no avail. Seeing that she's free, the baddie decides to leave, only to find that the building she was in is completely gone, thanks to the shadow guy. On top of it all, Lane finds her and gives her a love bite, forcing her into yet another slavery contract. Meanwhile, as Donora and Yogiri finally leave the hotel, they find that a bigger hell awaits them, as the entire city turns into zombie land. Mokomoko suggests they evade these guys and run away, which Yogiri agrees with. Meanwhile, the city's mayor Ryuta argues with the drag queen about how it's his city and he can't be destroying it, only to be reminded it was given to him by Lane herself. Masuki further tells him it's Lane who ordered him to do what he's doing, as he demands the key to the city and Ryuta doesn't put up a fight. With the key in his possession, the clown announces to the entire city that he has sealed all the borders, so the people have two choices. Either turn into zombie snacks or bring Yogiri and Donora to him within the next hour. Just as the duo hears this and wonders if they are being chased for being too overpowered or for unaliving a sage, a bunch of unemployed old hags come at them with their weapons drawn, only for Yogiri to send the most overconfident of them to hell. As the rest of them flee, he turns to Donora and suggests that they head to the city plaza to meet the walking corpse. Otherwise, he'd be forced to unalive more and more weaklings. Soon, they arrive at a park that appears like a Halloween-themed party where Masuki sits on his makeshift throne. He's surprised to see that the infamous Yogiri is nothing but a twig, and he asks whether the two are here to become human sacrifices to protect this city and its people. Yogiri states they aren't charity workers and just want to make it to the capital, for which he needs him to undo the barrier. This pops a nerve in his empty brain, so the Twilight-themed idiot reminds him he's not in any position to be making demands since he can just unalive him whenever he wants. Yogiri pulls an Uno reverse on him and tells him in exchange for lifting the barrier, he'll let him live, even though he's a good-for-nothing bastard. Following this, the drag queen sends his undead minions after Yogiri, claiming that no matter how godly he is, he cannot get rid of something that's already dead, only for the unaliving machine to do exactly that. This pisses off Masuki even more, so he pulls a cliched werewolf shape-shifting. However, Yogiri instantly breaks the shounen rules by unaliving him mid-transformation, proving even overworked anime norms don't apply to him. After this, he approaches Ryuta, who instantly begins yapping about how the Melon Queen Lane is the one who ordered the zombie guy to get rid of them, and that he cares about nothing but getting rid of her zombie circus. Just then, Mokomoko senses all the people of the city marching toward them, and Yogiri senses their ill intent. Ryuta tries to use the city barriers to keep them safe, but it turns out that his key is as useless as his existence. So he has no choice but to stay relevant by deducing it must be Lane's direct influence influence on the city's people that is causing them to come for Yogiri. The certified alpha really couldn't care less, and whoever tries to attack him gets the same instant death treatment. Meanwhile, as Euphemia warns her latest sugar mommy about messing with Yogiri, she flexes her shadow clone jujutsu and reveals that she plans on teleporting the shadow monster to Hanabusa so Yogiri can deal with it. In addition, she explains how her clones are completely independent of her, so if Yogiri tries to track her like he did Takabana, he'll fail. Back at the city, the shadow monster makes his debut and begins to thrash the place. Both Donora and Ryuta begin to panic upon seeing this, so Yogiri makes things easy and deletes the weirdo from existence. However, as soon as he does so, even weirder red missiles begin to rain from the sky, turning Yogiri into Donora's human umbrella and Ryuta into a damsel in distress. The latter wonders if it's the monster's doing, but the king of plot armor states that can't be the case as he's already unalived it. While that is happening, Donora brings his attention to her soft, juicy melons which he has been using as his head pillow, and he immediately gets up. Once she's done with all this fan service, Donora uses her only redeeming quality, her supernatural eyesight, to reveal that the drones are actually all the same ginger woman with plot cannons that could give her some tough competition. And Ryuta exclaims that it must be Lane herself. Donora wonders if Yogiri can just use his ability on her, but he explains why he can't. For one, she isn't aiming for him, so the ill intent is absent, and secondly, he can't see her, seeing that he may turn into burnt toast himself. The useless mayor finally pulls his trump card and traces the attacks with the city map that he has at his fingertips. Noticing that the drones aren't hitting the same spot twice, he predicts the location of the next stop, and as Yogiri begins to head to it on his own, Donora volunteers to help, reasoning that he won't be able to see her without her help anyway. Mokomoko gets on board too, claiming that she has a secret-ass pull-up of her own stored up, and the three teleport to the location with Ryuta's help. This loser then flees the scene, and with him gone, Yogiri and Donora work on their plot development while pretending as if they are trying to fight the enemy. As one of Lane's drone forms comes down to cockblock them, Yogiri uses his magic to finish her off, and Mokomoko pulls out her plot armor to shield them. As she later yaps about how this is the ultra-modern weapon she got from the Transformer wannabe, Yogiri tells Donora he hit the jackpot. Right then, all of Lane's clones start falling like dead mosquitoes, and the real Lane realizes it's because all of them were one and the same that this happened. She then plans to use different copies when she attacks him in the future, but her future ends right then, and she falls to her death too, still wondering how Yogiri managed to pull this off. At the same time, a cute loli with that trademark pink hair of uselessness awakens inside a coffin, and after FaceTiming with Lane, learns that she's her reincarnation. Elsewhere, one of Donora's shitty classmates, Ryoka, uses her ninja skills to hunt her girl dinner before catching Carol, another one of the sage candidates, fiddling with her phone inside her camp. This shameless pseudo-French girl admits she stole it from her because she wanted to check her monitor on Yogiri. Ryoka is surprised to learn that even foreigners kept tabs on Yogiri, but before she can inspect that further, the monitor on her phone begins beeping with the warning that the Alpha Omega's first door has unlocked. Meanwhile, this ultra-dangerous Alpha Omega enjoys his sweet nap while Donora drives an army-grade Jeep to the capital. This ride soon turns into a disaster when the dumb chick's shitty driving skills finally begin to manifest, all while Yogiri takes a trip down memory lane. It turns out that when he was still a guinea pig without a name, a school teacher called Asaka was hired by the research facility to babysit him. In reality, she was scammed into getting the job since no one told her what it would be about, only that the term Alpha Omega, which was Yogiri's code name, meant the end and the beginning of everything, and was the name of the monster she'd be responsible for taking care of. Expectedly, it took her by surprise, but even as she tried to resign right there and then, the shitty scientist couldn't care less about whether she lived or died. Eventually, he brought her to the secret interdimensional travel portal, leaving her with nothing but a manual filled with ugly doodles. Asaka knew she was too knee-deep to back off now, so she opened the portal anyway and arrived at an old-fashioned house, where she found Yogiri. However, instead of pissing herself, she felt instantly furious over the fact that this sus lab was experimenting on a literal kid, swearing to give him his human rights back. She dragged him outside and told him to play around on the fields, only for Yogiri to point his finger at her. Asaka thought she was as good as doomed, but he only got rid of the low-budget spirit behind her, explaining that such devils do come after him sometimes. Eventually, Yogiri agreed to play in the morning the next day, and Asaka took him back inside to cook him a 5-star meal, only to manage cup-o noodles in the end since her chef skills were non-existent. Later, as the two ate together, she asked if he had a name, which he did not, so she named him Yogiri. Back in the present, he's shaken awake by Donora, whose disaster driving has brought them to a dead end. As soon as he's awake, he tries to go back to sleep, but the chick's ear-piercing yelling keeps him up, so he wonders why they are even going to the capital when all they want is to return home, for which they need to see Shion. Donora thrashes him for not using his brain before they got here and tries to go back to where they started, only for the jeep to run into an old friend, a dragon.
Oh, give me a big fat dragon!
This guy gets pissed off and tries to fry them, only for Yogiri to flex his ass pole and condemn him to hell. However, before they can catch a break, a flock of his buddies turn into the Avengers and come for revenge, only to win one-way tickets to the afterlife. Soon afterward, their Thor-themed mommy shows up to teach Yogiri a lesson, but he fails to sense any ill intent from her and wonders why she's here anyway. Suddenly, she tells them they pass and tries to flee, but he stops her hasty retreat, warning her he'll send her to meet up with all her friends if she doesn't return. She immediately complies and turns into a loli with quail eggs in place of eyebrows, explaining that she only attacked them because she needed to see if they were worthy of meeting the Swordmaster, or just a bunch of lame losers. Yogiri has no idea who this Swordmaster guy is and decides to continue his jeep ride to the capital instead, only for the little girl to bribe him by saying that his powers rival the sages. Without a single good idea between them, they decide to meet with him in hopes of finding a way out of this disaster land, only to find a bunch of ugly Fortnite groupies gathered around at the meetup spot. One bastard who thinks he's too cool tells them they are automatically disqualified because of their ugly sense of fashion, only for Uribe, the Swordmaster, to tell him to shut it. He then looks around and decides there are too many participants, so he comes up with his own version of the Squid Games and tells everyone to start unaliving one another until they thin the crowd by half, which freaks the living daylights out of Donora. Yogiri states he doesn't care about their little competition, so he'll just leave, but Uribe says if he leaves, everyone will be disqualified. Just as he stops, the ugly Fortnite ninja from before starts slashing the other losers while Yogiri and Donora watch as the scene turns into an all-out brawl. Some dimwits even try to attack the Grim Reaper wannabe. However, before he teaches them a lesson, a delusional Mr. Self-Righteous protects them and yaps about what it's really like to be a swordsman. He later offers Yogiri and Donora to join his little rock band, but before they can even reply, a half-dead guy crawls up to them and begs Donora to place a fallen rainbow stone in his hand. He calls it the Apology Stone, and as soon as he touches it, his entire body reforms. The chick is shocked to see another guy with an ass pull even more baffling than Yogiri, but her thoughts get interrupted by the Swordmaster as he tells them all to follow him to the next game location. On their way there, Mr. Self-Righteous introduces himself as Rick, while the rainbow loser calls himself Lionel. Rick explains that becoming the Master Swordsman means protecting the gods and demons that were sealed away, all while their minions behind the scenes try to revive them. Lionel, on the other hand, explains how his shitty luck in his previous life brought him to a goddess with huge plot cannons one day, who offered him these magic revival stones as an apology. Leaving Donora dumbfounded, this newly formed loser gang soon reaches the venue for the next game, but Mokomoko senses something sinister and tells Donora to leave immediately. Meanwhile, Lionel pukes glitter from his guts, but recovers quickly with his logic-defying stones. Yogiri, on the other hand, says he doesn't feel anything but Donora finds it sus. But before she can say anything, Uribe calls them up to his Stone Age elevator and takes them to the rooftop. There, he shows them a big purple ball and calls it the end of the world. But Donora's superhuman eyes see a woman in white and a man in black inside there, whom Rick calls the Divine Swordmaster and the Demon Lord. Right then, an ugly Delulu chick with a horrible sense of fashion shows up and calls Uribe a worthless old turd whose time is done. She then channels a huge fireball and swears to evaporate the Demon Lord with it and restore world peace. But the only thing she gains from it is a reality check about how useless she is since the attack stalls out about halfway in.
You are one pathetic loser. No offense.
Uribe ignores her and introduces another hot babe, who explains the next round of the game to everyone. It involves going from the rooftop to the tower's first floor, while gaining 100 battle points. Meanwhile, Yogiri can't help but feel weird and eventually explains to Donora the reason behind it. She is shocked to hear this, and the duo tries to leave, but Lionel's short-tempered side chick, Frederica, gets in the way. The bitch throws a tantrum to hide her embarrassment from playing the clown just moments ago and snatches the apology stone from the poor guy, only to realize it doesn't work on her. Once she's done playing the drama queen, the group heads downstairs only to discover that most of the enemies have been defeated by the ones who left before them. Rick reassures everyone they'll be fine as long as they dodge the built-in booby traps, only for Lionel to step on one the moment he finished that sentence. As soon as he gets skewered, he uses the magic stones to resurrect himself. Donora suggests he just ties the stone to his hand if his shitty luck is going to bite him so often, just moments before he steps into his own death. Again, Rick follows right after him only to discover a sadistic bitch inside the room who claims she has unalived too many people and lost her status. She's here now to start over by gaining points. Rick's inner morality police lectures her on how this isn't what an aspiring swordmaster should do, but she tells him to shut it. Just then, Donora notices how the entire room is filled with thin wires right as Rick gets ready to give her some well-deserved spanking. However, Yogiri gets tired of her sadistic bullshit and unalives her. He later finds Lionel's severed hand with the rainbow crystal, and Donora finds him barely surviving thanks to his plot armor. Later, as the duo reaches the resting floor, the hot babe from before offers to let them rest in one of their rooms, and Rick parts ways with the group as he wants to continue the trial. Lionel decides to book one room for himself, leaving the only available room for Donora and Yogiri to share. When they enter the said room, Yogiri immediately begins to strip, making Donora wonder if he plans on punching her V-card, only for him to fall asleep instantly. Meanwhile, after Lionel receives 100 apology stones in exchange for all the shit he went through, the hot melon queen who granted them to him also pops up in his room, making him wonder if they'll be doing some R-rated workout later. However, to his disappointment, she leaves immediately after checking up on him and making sure he's alive. Elsewhere, a Sonic the Hedgehog-themed chick chases an ugly Rizzler, saying that if he doesn't join her little crime gang, she'll be forced to get rid of him. He tries to save his useless ass by flexing his tentacles, but the girl quickly turns them to dust, explaining she isn't into such fetishes. She goes on to copy his skills and even steals them from him, showing that she's a walking Mary Sue who he can't afford to defeat. This dumbass still tries his luck and uses his sword to defeat her, only to get his head severed by a literal penknife. Once she's done, she receives her next job via her walkie-talkie dagger, which involves her getting rid of Yogiri and Donora. However, as soon as she starts walking toward their location, the idiot Hanakawa shows up before her and begs her to take him in as her lapdog. Meanwhile, Donora wakes up the next morning and finds Yogiri's head on her soft plot cushion. However, before she can burn it in her memory, Mokomoko cockblocks them and calls for her help. It turns out that she got herself stuck in the middle of a wall while trying to peep at them sleeping together, and explains it's possibly because those in the tower are trying to summon and gather all the dead souls in the building, which has created suction in the walls. All this commotion wakes up Yogiri, so he tries to unalive the suction in the walls, freeing Mokomoko at last. He then tells Donora that she needs to man up because from now on, he'll be updating his villain software and getting rid of whoever gets in their way. She tells him she has never blamed all these deaths fully on him because she can't be ungrateful when he gets his hands bloody to save her, which weirdly turns him on. Elsewhere, the Sonic girl makes it to the mountains, and she easily makes the dragon Loli unable to fly, explaining how her ultimate cheat code allows her to nerf any ability in any way that she wants to. Suddenly, the dragon appears once again, only to be slashed by a low-budget robot, after which, the girl and Hanakawa continue their journey to find Yogiri. Back in the tower, as the duo continues their trial and Yogiri defeats all the clowns and monsters on his way, they come upon some condescending-ass clown sage introducing himself as a Glacia and claiming to be the creator of the tower. He throws a tantrum after learning Yogiri instantly bypassed all the traps he spent centuries building and decides to teach him a lesson. Yogiri, on the other hand, has had enough of this BS, so he instantly unalives him. Meanwhile, the system of the tower begins acting up, worrying the Swordmaster while Rick finally manages to score 100 points and meets up with Lionel. A little later, Yogiri and Donora arrive at a stadium in the middle of a catfight between a fanservice rabbit girl and a hooded emo princess. The latter holds the upper hand for most of the fight, but when the rabbit's sadistic master bribes her with a clapping session for later, she channels her inner Zoro and manages a hit. The hooded chick realizes she can't win this fight with her useless white girl energy and switches her skin color, revealing her identity as a half-demon named Theodicea. Following this, she summons her inner Pikachu as well and thunderbolts the rabbit, only for her to dodge it. Meanwhile, Yogiri watches this scene and wonders if running a harem scenario like this is worth the hassle, but then he reminds himself they need to leave the tower and interrupts the fight, asking if he can pass through. The ugly Rizzler says the only way through is if he entertains him enough with a 3-on-3 match with his side chicks, and Yogiri and Donora have no choice but to partner up with a half-demon. However, the king of plot armor realizes soon enough that he's far too OP to entertain some useless side character, and he unalives all 3 of his baddies before unaliving him too, and walking out. Just before he does so, Theodicea bows before him and begs him to help her, only for Donora to suggest they at least hear her out. She explains that she's here to look for her missing sister after she found that her people were trapped in this tower. When she asks Yogiri to help her with it, he tells her he doesn't run a charity op, but Donora says they can at least help her search. Hearing this, Theodicea reveals she expects to find something in the basement, just as Rick's loser gang arrives at the stadium with Lionel's sadistic situationship. They all regroup and reach the first floor where the old man Uribe meets them and rewards them with the title of the Divine Knights. However, before they can celebrate, his sidekick shows up with her carbon copies and warns him about the first barrier being broken. Just then, a laser beam destroys the tower and the hollow purple rip-off ball starts coming undone. While this happens, a loser who's still stuck in his emo phase shows up and declares war upon the Swordmaster on behalf of his master, the Demon Lord. Uribe spits some motivational speech about how they need to save humanity by defeating this thing, but Yogiri minds his own business and drags his 2-chick harem to the basement to look for Theodicia's family, with Rick and company still left behind. The emo dude asks Uribe about how he can undo the Demon Lord's barrier, but when the ugly old bastard refuses to answer, he starts unaliving the side characters all around him, one by one. Some third-rate Naruto wannabe tries to attack him, but gets electrocuted, after which Frederica summons a huge ball of lightning, only for the baddie to tank it with one hand. As if this isn't enough, another random guy appears from behind the emo prince and introduces himself as his sidekick, Lute. Frederica, who has had enough of all these new characters, tries to wipe his existence with yet another radioactive laser beam, but this guy easily withstands it and in exchange, turns her arm into caramel candy. While she reels from this shock, Lionel provides her with emotional support and Rick charges at Lute, but to no avail. Meanwhile, the king of shitty luck uses his apology stones to heal his potential girlfriend, only to accidentally summon his sugar mommy instead. Although this delusional idiot believes she'll save his useless existence now, the hot babe gets a warm welcome from the villain gang instead, as the emo guy kneels before her and his sidekick greets the giant plot cannons that he's missed so much, implying that they belong to the same team. While Lionel reels from this ultimate betrayal, Yogiri and company reach the secret facility in the basement where Theodicea finds that her beloved family has been turned into essentially batteries. Yogiri notices the Vilgax-inspired pods too and stays quiet while the demi-demon slashes through them, ending their suffering. Donora later asks Theodicea what she'll do now, and she says she's officially entering her villain arc, so the first thing would be the death of the Swordmaster. Meanwhile, Uribe appoints Rick as the new Swordmaster and Lionel asks the mommy goddess why she's here. She reveals she's here to save her boyfriend, who happens to be the Demon Lord, and explains that she used his trash tier luck to her advantage, hoping that his luck would bring doom upon humanity and resurrect her sweetheart. She then pulls a toy heart out of thin air and calls it the core of the barrier, claiming that it'll disappear once she crushes it. True to her word, the barrier disappears and the certified simp waits for her Riz King to come back, only to discover that he's been long dead as he instantly falls into a river. Donora, who has just returned to the scene, commends Yogiri for unaliving the Demon Lord the moment he saw him on the rooftop days ago, and he apologizes. However, before anyone can celebrate this victory, Theodicea channels her inner bitch and unalives Uribe, while the low-budget robot from before skewers the fanservice queen. Unfortunately, this psycho bitch doesn't die just yet and summons a demonic army in a fit of rage, only for Yogiri to unalive it in a heartbeat. While these overblown mosquitoes, along with the dead emo guy, fall to the ground, the psycho goddess blindly attacks everyone, and the ancient divine king's resurrected fossil protects them with plot armor. As if all this wasn't enough, the Sonic-inspired assassin shows up with Hanakawa's ugly ass too, and tells Rick he can get rid of the goddess's manic episode with his sword since he's the swordmaster now. He instantly complies and stabs her, finally getting rid of her laser beams. With one threat down, the Sonic girl looks for Yogiri and finds him and Donora emerging from the smoke, since he appears pretty ugly and worthless from looks alone. She doesn't expect much when she checks his stats, only for his overwhelming power to break her built-in processor. Realizing just how strong he is, the girl falls to her knees and curses Xion for summoning someone so dangerous in their world, while Yogiri and company fail to understand where she came from and why she's suddenly puking at their feet. She uses this chance to flee from the scene, leaving Hanakawa behind for a heartwarming reunion with his classmates, only for Donora to feel sick from the sight of his disgusting face. Later, the resurrected Divine King thanks Yogiri for all his help and Rick offers to join them on their way to the capital, but Yogiri tells him to keep his third-wheeling ass out of their honeymoon trip, flustering Donora. Still, Rick, being the too good for this world guy that he is, gifts them 2 pendants for when they reach the capital and Yogiri and Donora drive away in their jeep, leaving Hanakawa behind. Meanwhile, Xion summons one of the lab guys from Yogiri's world to learn more about him, but before he can tell her anything, his head bursts and she's left to wonder just who she has messed with. Elsewhere, the girl who got skewered by the dragon on the bus miraculously comes back to life with a cheat code that allows her to use a dragon's strength and regeneration. Her built-in Alexa tells her to eat the dead bird's meat if she wants to live, and she immediately complies, finally leaving her pick-me era behind. Meanwhile, Yogiri takes a trip down memory lane once more, recalling how Asaka used to prepare some seriously bad meals for him and forced him to lie about them tasting good. On the other hand, she'd cry over her non-existent culinary skills while forcing the same food into her belly. Later, she'd struggle with teaching him nursery-level vocabulary and get creeped out by their robotic maid. Somehow, she completed 1 month of playing Yogiri's makeshift mother and demanded resignation, only for her greed to get the better of her when the scientists bribed her with heaps of cash. Since her shitty capitalist job could never afford one, she took this chance to go on a vacation and had the time of her life eating fancy meals, drinking fancy wine, and buying the Gucci bags she always dreamt of having. However, shit got real when she got kidnapped and found herself locked up in a cellar somewhere. Meanwhile, Yogiri got tired of waiting for Asaka and decided to leave the facility to look for her. It wasn't difficult after the robotic maid led him to the portal, and from then onward, he just sensed all the ill intent directed toward him from the control room and used it as leverage to escape. Seeing that his little Einstein-inspired cult was getting wiped out like it was child's play, the head scientist ordered his guard to shoot the chick under Yogiri's influence, only for the kid to pull an Uno reverse on them. Moments later, he found Yogiri right in front of him, asking about Asaka's whereabouts. Upon learning that the agency took her away, Yogiri left the facility to get her and instantly wreaked havoc at the main facility. When he asked them where Asaka was, a 3-man clown group tried to take him down, only to meet the same fate. Down a different hallway, a pushy chick took Asaka out of hiding and held her hostage to keep Yogiri in check, only for the kid to unalive her too. This was when Asaka finally realized just how god-tier yet lonely Yogiri actually was, and she finally gave in, accepting her role as his guardian. Back in the present, while Yogiri continues to dream, Donora watches him and wonders if they'll be doing the horizontal bop soon. Makomoko reads her mind and tells her to clap him right now, but she lectures her on basic human decency instead, mentioning how important it is for Yogiri to make his choice too. Just then, he wakes up and a blushing Donora pretends as if nothing happened, drawing his attention to the fact that they were at the capital's gates instead. However, before they can even make it out of the jeep, a group of royal knights surround them, and their leader tells them to get out of the car and reveal their identities. They initially tell them they are Xion's sage candidates, here to go through the trial to become heroes, but the leader still finds them sus. That's when Yogiri's big brain works, and he pulls out the pendants Rick gave them, after seeing which all the guards kneel before them in unison. But just before they are let into the city, another loser, who claims to be the youngest of the royal family, shows up and yaps about how having the royal family's pendant means one of the two things. Either they are Rick's buddies, for which he doesn't care, or they are divine knights, in which case they should be able to defeat him in a sword fight. Makamoko nominates Donora as their fighter, and Yogiri reassures her he'll take care of things if it goes south. Soon, this shounen-themed arc begins, and being the main character with impenetrable plot armor, Donora becomes a fantasy-grade swordsman overnight, misleading the prince with her moves and kicking him in the nuts with her first move alone. Seeing this makes Yogiri's Simp software update to Ultra Pro Max, while the pitiful loser continues to hide his face in the ground. Once he recovers, this loser introduces himself as David, the younger prince, and volunteers to become their tour guide. He informs them how a demon lord is buried underneath the capital, and his pawns are trying to break him free lately, which is why a lot of explorers are visiting the capital in hopes of getting one or another pawn hunting job. However, quickly enough, Yogiri gets tired of his bullshit and tells him they'd like to travel alone now. As soon as this loser leaves, he turns to Donora and reminds her they'll be regrouping with their shitty classmates in just a bit, so she needs to decide whether she'll forgive them or turn into an Avenger. She doesn't answer right away, and they eventually make it to the royal palace, where all their classmates sit before the king's throne. Soon, an ugly old man in costume shows up, and Yogiri finds it hard to believe that a loser such as him is their king. It turns out that he isn't the only one, because as soon as the king begins yapping about what their next mission would be, some dimwit stands up before him and tells him they aren't his servants, so he should quit using that smug attitude with them. The king laughs and commends his stupidity, before severing his fingers with one swift sword strike while the loser writhes on the floor, wondering why his ability to stop time doesn't work against the king. At the same time, Shion finds the traumatized Sonic girl complaining about how she should have never been sent to unalive Yogiri because he's neither human nor a living being. While Shion doesn't get it. Elsewhere, Hanakawa complains to the Demon Lord's sidekick, Lute, about how Yogiri is truly a menace despite his laid-back, innocent guy facade. Lute then shows him a suspicious love toy, and Hanakawa wonders if even virgins like him have such fetishes. However, the boy soon reveals that it's actually a key that can unlock an even bigger threat than the dead Demon Lord, his sister. Hearing this, Hanakawa tries to flee, believing that if such a psycho truly exists, he wouldn't be needing his useless ass, only for Lute to grab him by the hair, figuring that he still needs his help as he barely knows Yogiri himself. Hanakawa worries others might mistake him for a rainbow flag if he hangs out with a kinky guy like him, so the sidekick reassures him he'll be cross-dressing just to keep it interesting. Back at the royal palace, the king reveals to the dumbass that they need to traverse the underground tunnels filled with demon spawns to clear the final level, and that their gifts are programmed in such a way that they weaken around members of the royal family. As he leaves after telling him his fingers will reattach once he's gone, Donora turns into an attention-seeking bitch, while her classmates have a hard time believing she's even alive. Elsewhere, the Divine King and company get off the subway and head to the nearby church, where the priest greets them. However, betrayal still doesn't leave her behind, and the Divine King gets captured by this bastard, who turns out to be the Demon King's minion. Meanwhile, Suguru meets up with Yogiri and Donora and pretends to be a Giga-Chad by saying he doesn't regret his decision to leave them to become dragon food. While Donora calls him out on his bullshit, another chick named Akino enters the scene and preaches forgiveness to them, telling Suguru that it's fair that he doesn't trust them, because if what he did to them happened to him, he too would have sought revenge. Later, Yogiri ends up in the same room as two other weaklings, Yuyugo, a cook, and Ehara, a reader. Just as these two flex their useless abilities in front of Yogiri, another depressed emo kid, Fukai, enters the room and asks the MC if they can talk. This sleep-deprived loser tells Yogiri that he's aware of his identity and is one of the few who were asked to keep tabs on him. When Yogiri doesn't understand what that means, he pops one of his eyes out and gives it to him, explaining how this was designed to detect the supernatural, but hasn't worked since he got izakai'd. Meanwhile, Donora gets educated on the abilities of their class's infamous threesome, the three-man squad, one of whom just got his fingers butchered by the king. Just then, Ryoka and Carol from before show up and beg her to let them talk to Yogiri, which Donora complies with, as if he wasn't feeling celebrity enough. The samurai chick bows before Yogiri and apologizes for everything, making him wonder if he's finally updated his status to God. The French chick later explains to him that the two of them, along with Fukai, were sent to keep him under surveillance and are here because the first barrier over his power has been lifted. Although Yogiri doesn't seem too excited about any of this, the chick turns to Donora and asks if he's clapping her behind the scenes despite acting so nonchalant on the surface. Eventually, the four of them form an alliance and decide to find a way to return home. That evening, as the trials begin, the girls flex their DIY costumes and Donora discovers that their guide through the underworld tunnels will be none other than Rick, who happens to be the prince of the state. On the other hand, David guides the boys, including Yogiri. As the demon hunt begins, Donora discovers that she has somehow become the female version of John Wick, while Yogiri uses 100% of his brain and forces the demons to impale themselves by turning their ill intent into a makeshift magnet. This impresses all the guys, including the constipated Suguru, but David doesn't understand how he can manage to be so effective with his amateur moves.
I'm
Do you think-
so
you think-
done with this
you think-
conversation
you think it's
right
possible
now. I
for-
can't do this. I can't. I'm so done.
Meanwhile, Euphemia comes across the little girl who is Lane's reincarnation and automatically accepts her as her master. The girl, who doesn't understand what's happening, names herself Risley and happily takes her in. Back in the capital, Hanekawa ends up at a tavern with the cross-dressed Lute, where he finds the three idiots from his class and uses his only useful skill, eavesdropping, to gather intel. Initially, it bears no fruit since all they do is backbite Yogiri and how he came up and stole all the chicks out of nowhere. However, when a hooded woman, who happens to be the resurrected girl, Ayaka, shows up and punches one of the losers until he turns into tomato puree, shit gets real. The tentacles guy tries to stop her, but she thrashes him too, explaining that she isn't into his dirty kinks and will be unaliving one of them each day, starting right now. As soon as she leaves, the bigger psycho Shion enters the tavern and offers to exchange info with Hanekawa if he tells her more about Yogiri's ability. The rat immediately begins to sing, and in exchange, he and the Demon Lord's minion learn about the location of the Underworld's door, where the demon's sister is sealed. Meanwhile, news about Ayaka's resurrection reaches Yogiri and Donora, who are still sure that they left her completely dead. Elsewhere, Yutori, the counselor, meets up with Shion and asks if they can get an extension on their deadline to clear the underworld, as 1 month is not enough. She initially declines, but later offers to accept his request if, in exchange, he can get rid of Yogiri. The following morning, Hanekawa and Lute successfully enter the underworld's first floor and find the Demon Lord's sister, who happens to be a totally hot diva. She says she smelled her brother's scent and came up here, and wonders if they have some of his belongings with them. The dumb sidekick immediately pulls out the sus toy, and the blushing babe can't help but feel grateful. Meanwhile, as Yogiri wastes time playing his video game, Donora has another outfit upgrade and tells him to make himself useful. He explains how he's been learning to hold back his powers and that, when he went for a walk earlier, it seemed like he was being followed. To find out more about his stalker, the two head to the city where Donora channels her inner girlfriend and tells him to treat her to lunch since she has a bunch of coupons. While they enjoy their little couple's argument, a sniper aims for Yogiri but instantly dies before he even shoots. The sadistic fancy girl controlling him changes gears and tells her boss to aim for Donora now. But when she is shot at, Yogiri saves her and traces the ill intent to their hideout. First, he unalives the cameras on them and later aims for the helicopter this loser assassin tries to run away in. With that doomed, he makes way for a parachute landing only for Donora to awaken her inner Rock Lee and kick him into the ground. Yogiri finds the loser at rock bottom and he tries to summon his spirits to fight him, only for Makomoko to grab and pounce them into oblivion. While Donora commends her for finally being useful, the assassin summons a werewolf and then a plot queen, both of whom Yogiri instantly unalives. Right then, the sadistic chick from before comes at Yogiri with a dagger, and he is actually distracted enough to almost get stabbed. But Donora saves the day. She asks him what's suddenly up, but he quietly deactivates the girl's processor, who turns out to be a robot, and then turns to the assassin, demanding he spits out everything. Meanwhile, it is revealed that Utori is the one who hired this crime gang to get rid of Yogiri. That night, Ayaka completely loses her shit and smokes the king's ugly ass while he's busy clapping some woman. She tells him to deactivate the seal that holds back the sage candidate's power, but when he refuses, she barbecues him and assumes with him dead, the seal will automatically deactivate. On the other hand, the Demon Lord's psycho sister, Mana, gives Hanakawa and company a tour of her self-created underworld full of fantasy kids she claims are children of her and her brother. Just as Hanakawa wonders if he's in Alabama, Lute explains they are merely a figment of her imagination, not real humans or demons. He then proceeds to thank Hanakawa for accompanying him on this journey and hands him the Demon Lord's sus toy, explaining that Mana wouldn't dare to harm him if he's the one holding on to it. Soon afterward, Mana leads them to her palace where she's supposedly sealed, but it turns out that the seal is far too weak to hold her back, something that both Lute and Hanakawa fail to understand. Meanwhile, Yogiri asks the assassin if it's true that his ability allows him to recreate anything from their world, including people. When he says yes, Yogiri tells him it's time for him to bid farewell and unalives him. Later, he tells Donora that the robot girl is actually cloned after his childhood friend, Inju, and that he got rid of that ugly-faced guy because he doesn't want any more clones of her roaming around. Back at the royal palace, Ayaka's manic episode continues as she faces Yuyugo in battle, but he withstands her dragon scales with a mere kitchen knife, explaining how his superior culinary skills make him almost invincible. The truth, however, is that Ehara is controlling his fight by writing the future that he desires in his overpowered future diary. Still, the Lords of Plot Armor eventually betray them and Yuyugo's shadow clones turn into barbecued beef with Ayaka's dragon breath. That's about when Yogiri and Donora arrive at the scene 2 and regroup with Akino, who reveals to the rest of their classmates that 8 of them have been wiped out by Ayaka, mainly because she's attacking them when they are alone. She further suggests that to keep the city from being ruined, all of them should move to the underworld and try to finish the second challenge before things get out of hand. The next morning, their entire class wreaks havoc at the training grounds of the underworld, slaughtering a bunch of boars and malnourished skeletons to finally move on to the 7th level, where they expect to come across some shady Dark Lord. At the same time, back at Mana's palace, the keyhole to undo the seal reveals itself and Lute's dumbass tries his luck by telling her that her brother, the Demon Lord, is dead. This psycho laughs and says that it's alright since she just needs to give birth to him again, for which she needs Lute's arms that still have his essence. Hanakawa, who still hasn't made sense of the giving birth part, can't believe his eyes when he sees Lute's severed arms and negotiates for his life in exchange for releasing the seal. At the same time, the Sage candidates throw a party to celebrate clearing the 7th floor, and Donora's traitor best friend asks her whether she and Yogiri have screwed each other yet. She denies this, but also realizes that she hasn't seen him since the party started and decides to look for him. Meanwhile, as his socially inept ass sits outside to play his video game solo, he notices a drunk David walking toward the end of a cliff and quickly grabs him before he falls. However, this doesn't help as the ground beneath them crumbles, and they end up falling down the cliff anyway. Just then, Shion ruins the celebration party and says they need to spice things up as they've cleared the underworld too easily. Just as Utori wonders what she'll spit now, she orders them to start unaliving each other until only one of them is left. At the same time, Donora searches for Yogiri but can't find him. Elsewhere, Theodisia smokes some human traffickers on their way to sell kidnapped demi-demon children and sets them free. Just when she feels disappointed over not finding her sister once again, the Lords of Plot Twists have mercy on her and Euphemia shows up in Risley's carriage, reuniting the long-lost siblings. Meanwhile, as Shion makes her announcement, the samurai and pseudo-French chick freak out over the second barrier of the Alpha Omega being lifted. Back at the party, Fukai rejects Shion's suggestion and, being a Yogiri ripoff, tries to unalive her. However, this walking zombie just resurrects herself and, while boasting her ability, blesses this sleep-deprived kid with eternal sleep. Meanwhile, as Yogiri continues to fall into the ditch for what appears like 100 minutes, he recalls Asaka teaching him how superhuman individuals shouldn't be required to follow the ethics and morals of regular humans and should make their rules for themselves. As the flashback ends, he finds himself in Mana's dream world and unalives his momentum to break his fall. At the same time, as the Psycho Baddie's seal comes undone, Hanakawa asks if he and Lute can leave. Mana permits them to do so, explaining how his ugly face will eventually start pissing her off. However, just as soon as they walk away, the ground turns rather squishy and Lute has no choice but to kick Hanakawa out of her castle, while he himself turns into fodder for the Demon Lord's rebirth. Meanwhile, Yogiri updates Mokomoko about his location, just as Hanakawa runs into him and kneels, begging to be saved from the suspicious slime following him. Yogiri does his thing and agrees to help him survive if, in exchange, he would guide him back to where he came from. This leads them to a Stone Age-style elevator, and Hanakawa claims this can lead them all the way from the first floor to the last one. At the same time, the unaliving ritual begins on the surface, and Donora evades one of her classmates as she pulls out her guns and assumes the role of a Terminator. She enters a room where Ehara is hiding, and his diary predicts her death, just as Ayaka shows up and a fiery fight ignites between them. Seeing this wimp changes his course and leaves the ceiling he's hiding in, and later gets out upon learning that Yogiri and Hanakawa are about to show up, thinking he's the protagonist in this story. This loser uses this chance to unalive Yogiri, only for the king of plot armor to give him a taste of his own medicine. At the same time, Makamoko senses a bunch of spirits approaching them while Donora hides out in the woods. When she decides to get down, her traitor best friend runs up to her and reveals that she's actually a necromancer, which she hid from everyone. On top of it, she has a guardian angel too, who happens to be an ancient princess. Upon seeing how gorgeous she is, Donora turns into a jealous little bitch and compares Makamoko to her, calling her useless and ugly. This breaks her heart, so when the world-class traitor switches their spirits using her innate ability, Makamoko fails to resist it and succumbs to her. Following this, the traitor attacks Donora, but when that doesn't work, she manipulates Makamoko's magic to expose her plots instead, turning her into fan service eye candy. Being the king of good luck, that's when Yogiri walks into the picture and blinds Hanakawa with a sucker punch, before taking his coat off and covering her up. Seeing Yogiri scares the shit out of Makamoko, and she's kicked out of the traitor's body. Just as that happens, her awakening finally happens, and a hideous demon begins to possess her instead. However, this power show fails to impress Yogiri, and he simply unalives her. Later, they all regroup with the other girls and plan their escape route, only for Mana's radioactive powers to unleash right then and cause the entire forest to blast away. Seconds before this, Utori, who is the sole survivor of their class politics, turns into a fairy tale princess and gets a bird's eye view of the entire situation. It turns out that it's just that time of the month for Mana, so she's throwing a tantrum. However, before he can find a way to tame her, the blast takes him out too. Meanwhile, Ayaka also gets wrapped up in this and loses 70% of her body, due to which her built-in Alexa gives her two options. Either go into hibernation until her body recovers naturally, or lose her shit completely and turn into a dragon. Being miles away from sanity, the idiot chooses the latter and turns into a DIY version of Charizard, before shedding all her dirty teeth and turning them into Naruto-style shadow clones, just weaker. Her one-woman flavor army then heads to where Yogiri and company are, and Hanakawa begins to cry with joy upon seeing so many juicy plot cannons all at once. However, Yogiri quickly unalives his creepy fantasies and all the clones die, making Ayaka wonder what just happened. Her built-in Alexa explains that whatever it was done by the one and only Alpha Omega, who was the world's #1 threat before they were invented. Ayaka's dumbass doesn't understand this and charges in to get her revenge on everyone, including Yogiri, despite Alexa's warning, only to become dead meat. With her gone, Hanakawa suggests that they look for the other survivors, only for the group to come across none other than Shion herself. Upon meeting Yogiri for the first time, she starts yapping about how much she's heard about him, but since he's had enough of her bullshit, he unalives her left ankle and tells her to cut through the chase and tell him how he can go back to his world. When she tries to attack him instead of answering like a good girl, Yogiri begins unaliving her fingers one by one until she has no choice but to flee the scene and teleport back to her bedroom. There, she tries to build her body parts from scratch, only to realize they are just as handicapped as Yogiri left them. Just then, her platonic boyfriend enters the room and asks why she's kneeling on the floor, only for his knees to give out too, making Shion realize that neither she nor her loved ones are safe from the wannabe Death Reaper. Left with no choice, she returns to where he awaits her and cries crocodile tears as a means to escape his wrath, only for Yogiri to make it clear that all he cares about is how to return home. Being the queen of uselessness, Shion says the link between both their worlds has been severed, so there's no way to do it as of now. However, she gives him the coordinates of his world and explains that if he has enough energy in the form of Philosopher Stones, they can return. taking the stone she offers. Yogiri leaves her be, stating that his hatred for her isn't enough for him to unalive her just yet. With him and his little circus gone, Shion recalls her poor boyfriend and decides to fly back to tend to him, only for Mana's period blob to get a hold of her and swallow her up. The next morning, the priest who kidnapped the Divine King celebrates the destruction of the city, but then Yogiri and his gang appears out of nowhere in his room. When David tries to lecture him on his recent human rights violations, he immediately dismisses him, making Yogiri dismiss him from the world. Hanekawa criticizes him for being a total dumbass and getting rid of their potential source of info, while Donora wonders when he'll work his magic to get rid of his annoying existence. Just then, her attention shifts toward the disgusting blob moving out of the city and breaking its barriers. The XL idiot finally explains it's the Demon Lord's sister who is doing all this, and he's responsible for it since he's the one who released her seal. Almost as if his fat mouth manifested it, Mana materializes out of the blob and asks Hanekawa where she can find Yogiri, the one who sent her dear brother to hell. Being the loyal bestie that he is, Hanekawa immediately introduces Yogiri to her. Pissing Donora off once more, Mana tells Yogiri if he's the one, she'll be ending his whole career in a moment, only for Yogiri to pull an Uno reverse and end her right there and then. Her death turns her and her blob into stale tomato ketchup, which covers the entire city, making it impossible for Yogiri's party to walk out of it. That's when David finally becomes useful and takes them to the rooftop, revealing an airplane that looks like a spin-off of the first Wright brothers plane. On top of it being extremely ancient, it turns out that it can't fit all of them either, so as always, Yogiri and Donora stay behind while everyone else flies away. Makomoko then sneaks in and upgrades Donora's outfit again, turning her into a budget DC character that leaves nothing to the imagination. Yogiri, being a closeted man of culture, doesn't waste a moment before grabbing onto her, moments before the Buddha ghost tells her to jump and spread her wings. Surprisingly, her Batman outfit works and the two begin flying, successfully reaching the outskirts of the city. They regroup with the rest of the gang and Ryoka begins arguing with Donora over which of them Yogiri will travel with, only for the certified Sigma to state he only cares about Donora, and that the rest of the baddies he will just have to deal with. Just then, the plot twist gods intervene once again and Risley shows up, asking Yogiri to marry her. He's almost tempted,
FBI, open up!
but the police sirens in his mind force him to say no, which makes the poor girl cry. She tries to bribe him with a philosopher's stone too, but to no avail, and his attention soon gets diverted with the demi-demon sisters' arrival. He eventually agrees to take them all into his newfound harem, with Donora being his main squeeze, and they all depart on their journey to Risley's palace. On their way, while Yogiri recalls the time he spent with Asaka, while enjoying a squishy lap pillow from Donora, the rest of the girls fume at her due to jealousy. This brings us to the end of Yogiri's crazy adventures as a world-class chick magnet. Thanks for sticking around until the end, you absolute legend. Comment nice plot cannons down below to let us know you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, and click on the screen to watch some of our other exciting videos. Until next time, stay awesome, stay Anageek.